Check, check, 2212. Check, check, 2212. Check. Check, check. Check 4752. Okay, I think we're good. Let's begin. All right, we have zoom. We have the ability to zoom in, not the software zoom. Not a big fan of the software zoom. So first, we're going to remove these cursory structures because these are not quite emblematic of what actually exists here. But I have the measurements right here. So I can't trigger the camera to reveal it, but perhaps that's fine. You'll be seeing it here in a moment. Anyway, so what happens is SketchUp has a geometric conflict whenever you try to broadcast two different landscapes. So what we're going to do first is hide the landscape. We don't need it. So this is the outline of the property. We don't need all of that. So we're going to create a secondary group here and place it here. Shift G, make a group. Now, when we edit this, we will not be interfering with the land. So the driveway, we'll put that in a minute. First, I'm going to do the house. So we have, well, the width of the driveway is 19 feet even. And then (27 inches). This brings us to the house. So this needs to go up 40 inches. And then that goes over 40 inches. Then this goes up here by 40 inches as well. And then this goes this way 119 inches. But yes, and then this goes up 63 inches. And that brings us to that side of the house. So this is another 27 inches. And then this actually comes up here by about 28 feet. There's a 22-inch protrusion, which goes up 54.5 inches. Equidistant protrusion on this side. Okay, then we have 53 more inches. Now this brings us to the other corner. We'll come back and grab that distance in a minute. Okay, that's the basic shape of the house done. Let's just confirm. So this is going to be 28 feet plus 101 inches. So something's off. Ah, I see. It's so that'd be 240. That'd be 341 inches or 50. Right. Okay. No, we're good. Actually, that tracks. Okay. So and this patio goes all the way here. Okay. So this is the basic shape of the house. So we'll group that now, and then we'll bring this over here a bit. And what we know is actually that the house is, again, at an angle. So what we're going to do is, if this, I don't know why that keeps triggering. That is quite annoying. Like, bruh. Okay, that is abnormal behavior. It does not normally trigger that. There's some issue with the geometry here that is I don't know why it's doing that. It really is only once you actually begin to stream that, of course, things seemingly go wrong out of nowhere. However, it's no matter. The problem has been resolved. So we're going to create a bit of a rudimentary driveway here. It's not going to be picture perfect. We're here for landscape after all. The driveway is set, and we're not going to be working too much in this area, as a matter of fact. So what I'm going to do is put a drive in like this, and then this will, for our purposes, suffice at the moment. Okay, brilliant. Or not quite. We can make that slightly better. The problem is the satellite imagery is not very high fidelity, which is a little bit vexing because you know the technology exists. It's just unfortunate that we don't have access, at least as far as I'm aware, in this instance, on how to get a more, well, a higher resolution. In any event, this is sufficient for our purposes now. I think we actually can just go ahead and pull the trigger and rotate this. So all we have to do is merge it there and then drag this over. So again, we have a slight differentiation in the actual math. This is to scale to the house, but the real house, not this image. So it's going to be a little bit fudged on this software. And in terms of artistry, yes, I would ideally fix that. It's generally not too appealing in my perspective. However, it's not something that is critical here. It's not going to ruin the project because this is more of a representation of what is going to be going on here. If this was going to be utilizing the satellite imagery as a basis, then we'd match it to this, but it's distorted in some event that actually throws the entire math off. However, we'll move on now. So we've got a bit of geometry here, an abnormally shaped pool, a deck with protrusions and indentations, this entire area, right? We're going to be modeling all of it. We've got some mature trees. These trees are actually fairly sizable now, both of which are mulberries, which is pretty awesome. So what I like to do too is hop into this layer and generate some trees, because I don't know what is going on with my software. It's not supposed to make everything impossible to see. I don't like this, because then I have to do a lot of guesswork, and although it's not too much of a deviation, it's a needless divergence of effort, when the reality is that close enough. I think it's literally just my software. Like, I nailed that one. It's just my software messing with me to try and make a fool of me. I also nailed that one. But alas, it is no concern. We're going to continue here on the site. So the only problem with rotating the house is now we have to do everything at a bit of an angle. However, let's do a quick double check here. So this should be 10 feet. So it is slightly off. This should be a little bit longer than that. I'm going to have to redo some of these measurements when I go back to the site, just for double checking. Obviously all of these are accurate, but it's a little difficult to describe this. There's a fair bit of geometry I'm staring at here, and it's not all to scale. In any event, then we do have this one, which comes down and lines up here. The width of this platform is 4 feet as well. Then immediately off the corner of this, it's 236 inches, followed by 69.25, by 4 feet, 109 inches. So this is going to become an art studio, which I love, and there might actually even become a separate beehive behind it, if you can believe it. I think that's pretty awesome. Okay. You know, we still have a fair bit of work to do here. There's obviously quite a bit of geometry. And again, it's a bit vexing that the satellite imagery doesn't quite line up. But that's all right. We don't need it to be perfect every time. Yeah, so this is part of the process. This is one of the immediate steps. We've already actually gone through and done a bit of labor here, and we've started removing gravel here and here. This is actually going to be ideally given to a buy nothing group. Otherwise, we'll find a more sustainable way to dispose of it. However, this project is going to involve a bunch of zero maintenance, pollinator friendly plants, low maintenance ideas, very sustainable growth. So that's what we're looking at and how we want the design to be implemented. I have to change my ambient music in the background. There we go. That's better. Okay. So, again, when I look at this design, a lot of aspects of the house are relevant to what we're going to be doing. We're actually going to be focusing on the peripherals of the property and right here in the middle, as in this area. This is the area we really are going to be focusing on, as well as some stuff on the side here. The primary objective here is to tidy up the property and then plant as much as possible things that accommodate a certain aesthetic. So when I read from the project notes I have here, and I scroll up to the immediate priorities, phase 1, we're talking about installing privacy plantings. We're talking about moving the Japanese maple in the front yard. And then we're talking about perennial herbs, natives, some perennial vegetables. Eventually this place will have raised beds, but in the interim it won't. So we're also going to be accommodating some different ways to use the drainage that's right here. So there's actually a downspout from the gutter that goes right here into the property. And that's something we want to consider. Now, when I'm going to do this, so copy, edit, paste in place, and then we're going to make another tag, excuse me, and then this one goes to 3D. Now, It's always something. There we go. All right, so let me just move this back over. Okay, now we're going to hide this, and we're going to create an initial mock-up, because what I want to do is begin to generate a sense of how, I swear, man, this software always has inconsistent behavior whenever I stream. So I will later generate a more accurate version of the house, but for the time being, this will demonstrate what I want to show, which is there we go. This is actually part of a fireplace. So now we have a very, very simple mock-up of the house. And if we do this and make a porch, as is the case here, I also have a profile of the colonnade here, so I'll replicate them exactly, because I generally try to keep things as detailed as possible without being obsequiously meticulous. I find there to be diminishing returns past a certain point of detail, but generally I try to adhere to what's going on. But for the moment, we're just going to do a little, they're in the profile here. Yeah, they're 4x4s. Okay, so 4. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I type in the measurements, very simple stuff, and it's completely remiss. Critically, we're going to make this actually a component, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, so the first one of those is 4 inches away from this corner. Okay, and then the next one is 125 inches away. And then the next one is 235 inches. That can't be right. I think yeah, we're just going to go ahead and call that adequate. So now, because these are all components, when I modify one, I modify them all. And here is where the cool part goes. So this is 43 inches before the fun starts. So this is 40 inches. Right. Okay, so now when I look at this, I have a flat wall, right? So now we can actually make a representation of how this is shaped in real life. And this goes up for a bit, and then there are a couple more. Actually, I think these are more equivalent, so let's do that. Okay, so now we have approximately this shape. It's not perfect, but from a distance, it will appear fine, and that is what we care about. So obviously, I'm not going to leave it like this. I have one more trick. So we need to go out to the birth here. Well, that just goes out to the end. Well, I suppose that's what we want. Right, so now we have a tool called Follow Me. And what that does is actually merges this tool is extremely finicky though. Again, this software makes me look incredibly inept, but simply the behaviors are rather inconsistent. Typical. I'm telling you, sometimes this works perfectly the first time. It just so happens to be the case that those times are when I'm not streaming. But such is life. Like, this is such a simple operation. It should take 2 seconds. This is the kind of thing that kills me. As much as I work with plants, I have to perform these digital components too, and of course I'm left with, instead of the genome of plants, the erroneous coding of this occasionally abhorrent software. So thank you to the developers at Trimble for making something so profoundly inconsistent. It literally won't even allow me to perform the function now. And I don't want to get stuck on tedium that's not pertinent to the larger part of the project, especially when it's such a minor cosmetic detail that really will accentuate the property, and it's the kind of absence that's sorely missed. So like, there we go. That's literally all it's trying to do. It's, and of course it actually messed up. It was supposed to grab this geometry too. So now I have to try it again. However, you can actually see where when that happened, it did not generate enough geometry. So we're gonna improve this a bit. And go there. And actually, I'll have to clean this all up again. But that's fine. Again, it's such a simple process, and yet it's needlessly difficult for no reason. That's the kind of thing that frustrates me. Alright, this should be a better reproduction. Let's reattempt it. Again, you can observe the inconsistencies within the program. Like, are you kidding me? Okay. You see what I'm talking about? Like, where is it pulling this phantom geometry from? It literally makes no sense. Like, what? Now it wants me to do this. Like, what is this? Does that resemble in any way what I was attempting to just do? No, it does not. Of the 15 attempts I've made thus far, it has successfully replicated the intended function precisely one time. That is absurd, and I hate that I'm continuing to stream this, but we're absolutely proximal to success here, and yet I am plagued by this problem. And I don't want to just have to retreat from this and then, deal with nonsense. It really is quite frustrating. Like, there's again an issue here, which I'm gonna have to rectify later, but I have to cheat the software to get the intended normal function out. Now, for our intents and purposes, this is adequate at the moment. I'm unwilling to fight it longer, given the Jesus Christ. Alright, we're just done playing with this for the moment. Alright, so obviously that needs to be fixed. It's inaccurate. And I think more to the point, actually, this should be lowered. Right, so again, like, it's a minor detail, but noticing the shaping here adds such depth, especially when the siding of the house is vinyl cladding. It's not a particularly evocative geometrical sense. It's not really something you'll take away, but this, adding this minor, subdued banister it adds a lot of character, and so I want to replicate that when we're going to be designing something specifically for the homeowner, right? So now what we're going to do is bring back that none of these should exist. Better. Okay, so classic. Better. Okay, so what's going on here? We have the elevated site, which we don't need at the moment. And then we have the flat site, which we do want at the moment. There we go. Except in order to prevent that very annoying, I'm telling you, man, this is the most inconsistent software. Okay. So now we have a minor replication of the house. It took far too long to do that, but in any event, there we have it. So this is actually geolocated to the real property. So the very cool thing about that is we can simulate the shadows. So you can see them, very low resolution shadows, but they are there. So what we can do is watch the shadow here behind the house. As we move the time, it shifts the shadows. Now that is really helpful to ascertain solar potential, where the trees are, because I know, for example, these are mulberry trees. This is a crepe myrtle. This is another crepe myrtle. And this is also a crepe myrtle. So I know that they're also, all three of them, close to about 20 feet. The mulberries are closer to about 12 feet. So when I plug that in, I can see, okay, here's how much sun we're getting from the afternoon. If we want to look at the sun in July, when the azimuth is a lot higher and there's a much more exposed angle, right, you can see how the patterns are different. So this is very good information to have, especially when you pair this with shademap.app, which is a great website to ascertain a graph-like depiction of what the sun profile is for the year, or the exposure. So this is also great for very casual rendering, but we're going to do something a little bit better than that in the near future. This is just the representation of what we have going on at the moment. So again, we can simulate the shadows. So we have a bit of shade in the morning sun, right? So that's 8 a.m. in the middle of July. Today is May 22nd. So it's May 23rd, whatever, that's fine, on the program, right? So right now it's 8:42. So predictably, it's dark. And that means sunset was at 7:15. However, when we look at the history for today, these are how the shadows would have moved throughout the day. Now, granted, this house, again, is not to scale. It should be about 10 feet shorter or something like that, but it gets the point across. So this will inform our decisions in the backyard for what we plant here, which is, it's still pretty much full sun. But same thing in the backyard, where once we have these trees, then we'll have a better profile. But at the same time, there are factors that get drawn into it for bees, mason bees, for plants, for bulbs, for chickens, for gardens, for all that stuff. So this is a good stopping point at the moment. I'm going to save before SketchUp decides to crash, but we'll continue this next time. I'm still getting used to these streams. I think I've dialed in my setup. I want to enhance it a little bit, but now that we have the software in check, I would like to do these more often, schedule permitting. So to anybody who checked in, thank you very much for watching along. We'll be doing more of these in the near future. My goal is to do 1 to 2 per week. I also have some exciting news to announce pertaining to other streams and designs, so stay tuned, and those will be coming out before too long. All right, thank you very much. Have a